Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a really important area for academic research in Kenya, quantitative data analysis using SPSS. We've got a guide, actually, designed specifically for Kenyan students and researchers, for theses and dissertations.
That's right. And our goal really is to kind of cut through the complexity, show you how statistical analysis, especially using SPSS, can take that raw data you collect.
All those numbers.
Exactly, and turn it into meaningful insights, specifically within the Kenyan context.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding this crucial part of research here.
Absolutely. It's like understanding the engine that turns numbers into knowledge. And this is vital across so many fields in Kenya.
Right, like public health, you see it a lot there.
Public health, agriculture, definitely. And, well, fintech, too. I mean, you can't really talk about Kenyan society without mentioning M-Pesa, can you?
No, you really can't. Its impact is everywhere. So to give you a roadmap for this deep dive, we'll start with how to align your SPSS work with your actual research questions. Super important first step.
Crucial.
Then we'll get into data collection and prep, focusing on what's typical here in Kenya.
Yeah, the practical side.
Then descriptive stats, inferential stats, how to present it all clearly.
And finally, those challenges you might face, right? The real world stuff.
Exactly. So let's kick off with that first bit, aligning SPSS with your research aims. What's the starting point?
Well, the very first thing, is clarity. You absolutely need well-defined research questions before you touch SPSS.
Right. You can't just jump in.
No. The guide really hammers this home. Think about concrete Kenyan examples.
Okay.
Like you might ask, does access to clean water in rural Kenya actually correlate with, say, lower childhood disease rates?
Okay, that's very specific.
Or maybe something on the economic side. How do mobile loans like Fuliza affect small business profitability in Nairobi?
Got it. So these aren't vague ideas, they're testable questions.
Precisely. That focus drives everything you do in SPSS. And importantly, you need to think about ethics right at the start, too.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Ethics. What's key there in the Kenyan context?
Well, getting institutional approval is paramount. You'll likely need clearance from bodies like NACOSTA, the National Commission. And data anonymization is crucial. You have to protect your participants. SPSS actually has tools for this. Like under Transform, you can recode variables to remove identifying info.
Okay, so planning for ethics and anonymization happens early. Now, what about getting the actual data?
Right. So once you have your questions and your ethical clearance sorted, you need data. The guide talks about primary data collection first.
Gathering it yourself.
Exactly. And tools like Kobo Toolbox or even in Google Forms are, really common here.
Easy to use, yeah.
And the great thing is they usually let you export the data easily into formats SPSS understands, like CSV or Excel.
So the tools many people already use can feed right into the analysis pipeline. What about existing data? Secondary sources?
Oh, absolutely. Kenya has some fantastic secondary data sources. The Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, is indispensable for socioeconomic data.
I've used their reports before.
Yeah.
Very useful.
Definitely. And for climate-related research, there's ICPAC. Plus, academic repositories, Roof Forum is a good example, for finding previous studies.
Okay, so lots of options there. And getting that data into SPSS, is it complicated?
No, generally pretty straightforward. Usually just file open data and you navigate to your file.
Simple enough. But, when you're out in the field collecting data, things aren't always perfect. What about, missing information?
Ah, yes, missing data. It's almost guaranteed you'll have some, especially with surveys.
It just happens.
It does. SPSS has ways to handle it. The guide mentions using transform replace missing values. There are different strategies depending on your data.
Good to know there are tools for that. Any other prep steps that are really important?
Yes, labeling. The guide really stresses this. In SPSS's variable view, be crystal clear with your variable labels and your value labels.
What do you mean by value labels?
So say you have a question with yes-no answers, coded as 1 and 2. Don't just leave it as 1 and 2 in SPSS.
Right.
Label it explicitly. 1 yes, 2 equals no. Or for categories like counties, list them out. It saves so much confusion later on.
I can see how that would prevent headaches down the road.
Okay.
So data's in, it's cleaned up a bit, labeled properly. What's next? Getting a first look.
Exactly. That's where descriptive statistics come in. They give you that initial feel for your data.
The summary.
The summary, yes. The guide points to using frequencies that's under-analyzed descriptive statistics frequencies. Great for looking at demographics.
Like gender distribution.
Perfect example, gender distribution, age groups, education levels. It just describes who is in your sample.
And what about numbers like income or farm size?
For those continuous variables, you'll look at measures of central tendency, the mean, median, and measures of spread, like the standard deviation.
Okay.
So you could calculate the average farm size in acres for your participants and see how much variation there is. It paints that basic picture.
Painting the picture. And visualization helps with that too, right? Charts and graphs.
Hugely important. SPSS has the chart builder under the graphs menu. It's quite powerful.
What kind of charts are useful?
Well, the guide suggests things like bar charts, maybe to compare, say, poverty rates across different counties.
Visually clear.
Or pie charts, perhaps for showing the breakdown of education levels. And crucially, you can export these charts easily.
As image files.
Yeah, PNG, JPEG formats, you can just drop straight into your thesis or report.
Great, so descriptive stats and charts give us the what. But often, research needs to go further. Testing ideas, hypotheses, that's inferential statistics.
Precisely. Inferential stats let you draw conclusions about a larger population based on your sample data. This is often the core of a thesis analysis.
So what are some common tests used in Kenyan research that the guide mentions?
It covers the big ones. For comparing averages between two distinct groups like, do maize yields differ between irrigated and rain-fed farms in Kajiado? You'd typically use an independent samples t-test.
Okay, comparing two groups. Where do you find that?
That's under analyze compare means independent samples t-test.
Got it. What if you're looking at relationships between categories? Like, does mobile banking use relate to literacy level?
Good question. For relationships between categorical variables like that, the chi-square test is your go-to.
Chi-square, okay.
You'll find that under Analyze Descriptive Statistics, cross-tabs, it tells you if there's a statistically significant association.
And what about prediction? If you want to know what factors influence something, like voter turnout.
For prediction, or understanding the influence of multiple factors, say, income, education, location on voter turnout, you'd likely use regression analysis.
Regression.
Usually linear regression for starters. That's under Analyze Regression Linear.
So SPSS gives you the tools. But running the test is one thing. Understanding the output is another.
Absolutely critical. Interpretation is everything. The guide stresses looking at p-values.
The significance level.
Right. Typically, a p-value less than 0.05 suggests your finding is statistically significant, unlikely to be due to chance.
Okay, p 0.05.
And for regression, you need to understand the coefficients. They tell you the direction and strength of relationships. Like a coefficient might tell you each additional year of education increases predicted income by 12,000 Kenyan shillings, something like that.
Right, translating the statistic into a real-world meaning.
Exactly. That's where you answer your research question.
Okay, so you've run the analyses, interpreted the outputs. Now, the big task, writing it up in your thesis. Any advice from the guide on that?
Clarity and context are key. Structure your analysis chapter logically. Use tables for your main results. SPSS makes this easy.
How so?
You can copy tables directly from the SPSS output window and paste them into your Word document using Paste Special and choosing formatted text. Keeps it neat.
Nice tip. What about the context part?
This is really important. Don't just present your numbers in isolation. Relate your findings back to other studies done in Kenya.
Show how it fits in.
Exactly. Like, our finding aligns with KNBS reports from 2023 on urban migration trends, or this contradicts earlier findings by so-and-so.
Okay, connecting to the literature.
And, if possible, link your results to national goals. Does your research touch on Vision 2030, or maybe the Big Four agenda? Show the relevance.
Demonstrates broader impact. Are there common mistakes people make when presenting results?
Oh, definitely. The guide warns against just dumping all your SPSS output into the thesis. Be selective. Show the important stuff.
Don't overwhelm the reader.
Right. And another big one. Don't confuse statistical significance with practical significance.
Explain that difference.
Well, a result might be statistically significant, p 0.05, but the actual effect size might be tiny, almost meaningless in the real world. You need to consider both.
That's a really crucial distinction. Now, let's shift to the practical side again. Doing this work in Kenya, there can be challenges, right?
For sure. The guide is realistic about this. Software access is one. SPSS isn't free, so it suggests checking university computer labs or looking for student licenses. but it also highlights a great free alternative, Jamovi.
Jamovi.
Yeah, it's open source, and its interface is very similar to SPSS, so it's easier to switch if you need to.
That's a great resource. What about things like power cuts or unreliable internet?
Also, very real concerns. The advice is simple but essential. Save your work constantly.
Treat O plus S as your friend.
Absolutely. And use backups. Cloud storage like Google Drive or OneDrive, or just a physical external drive. Don't risk losing your work.
Good practical advice. What if you feel a bit lost with the analysis itself? Maybe supervision is limited.
That can happen. The guide suggests seeking out community. There are online groups like maybe Kenya Thesis writers on Facebook.
Peer support.
Peer support, yes. And look out for workshops. Sometimes universities, like ZTech is mentioned as an example, run SPSS training sessions.
Proactive steps to get help. Okay, those are really helpful, down-to-earth suggestions.
Trying to be practical.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway message about using SPSS for quantitative analysis in Kenya?
I think the core message is that mastering SPSS isn't just about ticking a box for your degree.
It's more than that.
Much more. It's a fundamental skill. It equips you to analyze data properly, make your academic work stronger, and, actually contribute to understanding and addressing real issues in Kenya.
Yeah, I like that framing. It's not just a hurdle. It's a tool for turning all that complex information into a clear story.
A compelling narrative, exactly. One that can convince examiners, sure, but maybe even influence policymakers down the line.
So for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I need to get better at this, what are some concrete next steps?
The guide offers a few good ones. First, get your hands dirty, practice. Download some open data from KNBS and just play around with it in SPSS.
Learn by doing.
Absolutely. Second, go to your university library, physical or digital, and look at past theses. See how other students have presented their SPSS results.
Learn from examples.
Yes. And third, perhaps most importantly, talk to your supervisor early and often about your analysis plan and your results. Don't wait until the very end.
Get feedback along the way. That's all really solid advice.
Hope so.
And maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Think about how this growing ability to really dig into data, to analyze it effectively, how is that shaping not just theses and dissertations in Kenya, but the country's overall capacity to understand itself, its challenges, its opportunity, its whole development path? It feels like quite a profound shift.
It really does. Data literacy is becoming crucial.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this